This is episode number 496 of the Health and Fitness Podcast by InnerFight, brought to you in association with Smith Street Paleo. Be sure to hop over to smithstreetpaleo.com, check out all of the great food over there, and get involved in their meal delivery if you live here in the UAE. So guys, if you're looking still for a big goal for 2019, then I might have something for you here. We've teamed up with Ultra X to give you a special rate on the races that these guys are organizing this year. They organize 250k 5-day races. It's a race series which are held in exotic and inspiring locations around the world, and they actually culminate with a biannual World Championships. It's super awesome, and I can vouch for this, that taking on a multi-day ultra in a far-flung corner of the earth is probably one of the greatest experiences that you can have. And now that Ultra X are making these experiences more accessible for all, it's definitely something that you should be considering for 2019. In this year, they have races in Sri Lanka, Jordan, Mexico, and they'll be adding 2 races to the series each year, with Bolivia and the Azores getting released in the summer of 2019. So if that really does sound like something that you are interested in, we have a discount code which will get you £200 off the races. You can hop over, have a look, ultra-x.co. The Sri Lanka race is the first race, which is on the 13th of April. You get £200 off using our code INNERFSL19. Go and check it out. Get involved. I'm looking forward to racing some of their races this year, and hopefully we'll see some of you guys there. Welcome back to another edition of the podcast, folks. And for those of you that have been listening to the show for a while, you might dial back around 4 years ago when I'd actually just got back from a race in Oman, and I was talking to a gentleman by the name of Johan Steene, who'd won that race. Now, fast forward 4 years, this guy is doing some absolutely incredible things. So I have Johan on the line. Johan, thank you so much for the second appearance on the podcast. How are you, my friend?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm having a good time here in Sweden. We have a little bit of snow, but it's like just around freezing, and I'm trying to do some work because everyone is more or less on vacation, and then you have some time to be in your office and do just keep up with everything you have to do on the new year.
I think that's a great place to start, because first and foremost, you have a full-time job. And not only a full-time job, you have a very serious job. Tell us a little bit about what you do for a living, what your job is.
I'm a CEO of a company group named Technion, and we are the mother company in this group, where we acquire smaller companies that mainly trade in industrial components, and our main target is the Nordic countries, but we actually have some customers all around the world, and we're trying to expand this group, and we're now putting it public this spring, hopefully on the Stockholm Stock Exchange.
Wow.
And it's a lot of work just to fulfill all the regulations that you have to do when you're becoming a public company.
I'm sure it is, mate. As far as work, it's a full-time job, so you're working 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Just give us a little bit of context around that.
Normally, I think I work approximately 10 hours a day, and the good thing about this is that I have approximately 10k to my office from my home. So every morning, as long as they let me, I take my kids. I have 2 boys. I take my kids to school, and from there I just jog to my office. Wow. And then I work my hours, and then I put on my backpack with my computer and my extra clothes, and I run back home to my family at night. So I get just by commuting by foot, I get my training in every day.
I remember that
approximately.
I remember that story from the last time you were on the podcast, mate. So to see all these years later that you're still doing it is probably one of the keys as to why you've become such an amazing ultra runner, because you're already doing 20Ks a day just to get to work and back, right?
Consistency is good if you're gonna run long distances. I think it's very good for you to just have this I see it as free training. I mean, I just get it by getting to work. I get an hour of jogging, which I just clears my mind and makes me prepared for what I have to do during the day. And then when the working day is over, I just can get some new energy by moving by foot back home and be a little bit happier, and when I can be with my family at night. So it works really well for me. And then of course, if there's a big race coming up, I have to train more. But
what would that look like then, mate? Like, so you're doing 20Ks a day, 5 days a week. But when you have a big race coming up, how do you incorporate that into the midweek training, or would you add things on the weekend?
Normally, I always do something on the weekends. If we are invited to some friends for dinner or so, I might run there, or to my parents or to my wife's parents, I run there. Wow. So I try to just put in A to B runs. So just instead of traveling in any other way. And,
so it's fitting in with your life, really. That's.
I'm trying to use this as much as possible in my everyday life. Yeah.
That's incredible.
And that's a good thing. But otherwise, if I train for a specific race, I do three jogs a day instead of just doing back and forth to work. I do something at night. Perhaps if I'm going to the mountains, I try to find. I have an artificial ski slope in Stockholm, which is not so high. It's like 85 meters, but I can have to do repeats in there. Or if I have to do something really long, then I just run long and slow at night, flat. So I try to just adjust a little bit into what I'm going to how the race is.
Mate, we were together quite a number of years ago now in a race that was 300 kilometers long. It was a single stage race, and you won that race joint first with, I seem to remember it was a French gentleman, was it? That was with you.
No, it was Portuguese, João Oliveira. Yeah. So we and the third guy was Thierry from France. Yeah,
that's right.
So
was that was probably the kickoff of your ultra running sort of statement. I mean, to win a race like that, a 300 kilometer race, the way that you did, it was almost like your arrival in ultra. Would you say?
Yeah, I think so. Especially in what I mean, I can be competitive when it's really long, and actually I would like to add also really slow, because I can go on for a very long time, but I'm not a fast runner. Right. So this non-stop races that takes several days to complete, and where you carry your own equipment, that suits me really well. I like to take care of everything and manage everything when it comes to like energy and liquids and just the pace that you use to sustain for several days. I like that a lot. And when you get tired, you sleep where you are and you just push on. So that's something that intrigues me, and those are the races that I like the most.
Is that something? Where do you think that almost? I mean, to me, it's an incredible skill that you have. And I'm sure you can tell us a number of stories about sort of napping for 3 minutes or 5 minutes, but where do you think it comes from?
Oh, good question. The drive for me when I started, and then I was interested in ultra running, which was like in the winter 2010, 2011, I read Born to Run by Chris McDougall, and I thought like, there might be a couple of hundred people in the world that can run for 100 miles. I thought it was fascinating, and I was really interested and curious about where are my limits, what will happen to me, and where will I become just a little whining thing that won't be able to go on. Yeah. So I started seeking for that, and I was not interested in doing the races to compete with others. I was driven by the curiosity to know where my limits were. Right. And that made me just sign up for races that were longer. And of course, I wanted to visit spectacular places, and I had the opportunity to travel. So I signed up for races that I thought would be in beautiful landscapes, and also with that had something that intrigued me, that I thought would push me to my limits. Yeah. So that was the drive from the beginning. And then when I started doing it a lot, because I have some sort of that's something with me in my personality. I tend to do what I find as a hobby. I tend to do it very much and a lot. So since I started running very much, I started also to place myself good in the races, and then of course the race aspect of everything and the drive from just trying to do well and compete with others also came into the running for me. And I started doing timed races like 24-hour races and 48-hour races, and finally I got into the Swedish ultra running team when it came to 24-hour championships, and I've done a few of those. And I think the shortest race where I can be competitive in on a more international level is the 24-hour run.
Right.
And that's almost on the limit for me because I'm a very slow runner. But I placed well there once, and I got a bronze medal in 2017.
Wow.
Yeah, that was actually wow for me as well. I think many people, me included, was surprised by that performance, but it was a good day for me, and I ran 266 kilometers, and that's my personal best for now. I think I will try to do a little bit better, but somewhere there, I think is my personal limit is very close to that.
I think a lot of people are going, wow, 266 kilometers in 24 hours. That's very, very respectable, Johan. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. It is, of course, but still, there's people out there right now that has a much higher ability to perhaps even go for the world record, which is just slightly over 300k. So
phenomenal.
I think we will see spectacular performances in the 24-hour race in the coming years. Actually,
yeah, I agree with that. Although 266k, 300k is quite normal for you, because you have a record of a race that's 500k. Talk to us about that a little bit.
That's one of my absolute favorite races that I've ever done. It's actually it's pi times 100 miles. Right. So the figure pi, which is 3.1415, etc. So it's the only irrational race in the world, since pi is an irrational number, and it starts in Missouri. You start by just stepping on a car ferry that goes over the Mississippi River. You land in Kentucky, and you do a few miles in Kentucky before you enter into Tennessee, and then you run through the rural areas of Tennessee diagonally down until you get into Alabama for a few miles, and then you finish up on a farm in Georgia. So you do 500k in the middle of the summer in July, in the summer heat and humidity of southern U.S.
And is it? It's a non-stop race as well. So you take care of everything.
You have two classes. So you have one class that is for aided runners, where you have a crew with you, and then you have that's only like 10 or 15 runners, because you cannot have so many support cars on the road. It's just open roads. They're not closed. And then you have approximately 100 runners, which is without a crew, and that class is called screwed, which is a little bit fun, because you're not allowed to, you're just by yourself, and you are not allowed to accept help from anyone that are affiliated with the race. There are no aid stations. It's just you and your little backpack and the roads, and you go into gas stations to buy something to eat and drink, and at night you're more or less by yourself because everything is closed at night, and you just push on, and more or less you have to run at night if you're going to do a good time, because at day it's so hot and you can hardly walk. So at day you have to walk, at night you have to run, and you have to sleep as little as possible if you want to do a good time. And a few years ago, I managed to. I've done the race twice. Actually, I'm doing it again, and I've done it screwed both times. And I wanted to get under 4 days. You have 10 days to finish the race. I wanted to do the course record and do it under 4 days for screwed runners, and I managed to do that a couple of years ago. It's a little bit long.
How do you, when you're going into that, mate, like you make it very light and very casual. Yeah, I'm going to run 500k and I'm going to do it under 4 days. But what's going through your mind when you're towing the start line? You're lined up against everyone else. You know that for the next just under 4 days, 3 and a bit days, you're going to be on the limit, on your physical limits. How do you prepare your mind for that?
Extremely good questions. Question. I think it's. I have to try to stay at the present at all time. If you start to think ahead of what's going to happen later and how painful it's going to be and how hard it's going to be, I think you will quit.
Yeah.
So just, I don't know if it's true or not. I try to think of it as a tunnel where it's just one end at the other. It's just an opening. You see the light at the other end. And for many days, you don't even see the light. You're just in the tunnel, but there's no other way out. You're not allowed. The rule is in your mind. You're not allowed to get out of the race in other way than to finish.
Right.
Because it's so easy to just quit, to DNF. Especially since there's something called they call it, it's a big pickup truck or a minivan, like a small bus, which they call the meat wagon.
Yeah.
Just drives up and down the course and pick up people that don't want to continue. So it's very easy just to if you have the wrong mindset and you feel that you've done enough, then you will just quit. So you have to make up the rules that I'm going to be really, really uncomfortable for many days, and there's no other way to get through this but to get to the other side. That's the only way out. And don't think ahead, just to be in the present and try to adapt to whatever happening right now. Now I need to drink. Now I have to find something to eat. Now I have to, I don't know, lubricate the where the legs meet, just because to get rid of the chafing, because at this race it's so hot and humid, so you're constantly drenched in your own sweat, and all the salt will make, there's a big chance that it will start to create osmosis in your skin, which just makes the cell to break down, and you get the worst rash you can ever imagine. Everything, like the skin just falls apart, and everything becomes flesh. And
not so comfortable.
No, very, very, very uncomfortable.
But when you're in that situation, though, mate, I understand what you're saying. Like there's only one option. You're heading towards the end of the tunnel. You have to stay present. But you've got experience, so you know sort of when to eat. Is there a game plan that you go into? Like, okay, this symptom's coming now, whether it's thirst or hunger or whether it's chafing. Okay, that's how I'm going to react. Does it get easier with your experience, or is it always you get to, like, do you suffer? What I'm getting to, really, the real question is, do you get to a point of suffering in every race that is somehow maybe a little bit new, even though you've done multiple and you know what's coming along the way?
Yeah, I think that what's the most important the most important thing that I've learned is when to sleep, because what will break everyone finally is the sleep deprivation. So everything else you can push or postpone a little bit. I mean, when you're doing these races, non-stop races, you don't have access to drink and food all the time. Right. Maybe you have to get into the next town or the next, I don't know, whatever, where there's some sort of civilization, or just walk up to a house. And you don't dare to walk up to every house when you run through Tennessee. But if you find a house that you dare to walk up to, you perhaps can get something to drink or ask for some food or a sandwich or something. But otherwise, you can more or less postpone everything, but not when you get real symptoms of sleep deprivation. Yeah. Then I learned the hard way that you need to sleep, and then I just have perhaps a $1 rain poncho in my little backpack that I just spread out on the ground and lay on that and sleep for. Normally I sleep for 20 minutes.
Right.
And that will put everything in order in the brain, and I can push on for another perhaps 10 or 12 hours.
Wow. Wow. From a 20-minute nap, you feel that you're able to push on for that amount of time, do you?
Everything depends. I cannot say it will be like that every
Yes.
time, but if I sleep from 20 minutes up to perhaps 40 minutes, and it's a rather good sleep, then normally you can push on for 10 hours if you have food, if you have water.
Yeah.
But those things always come into play. So and also if it's in the middle of the day and it's really, really hot, then perhaps you have to sleep again, because the heat will make you even more sleep deprived. So there's a
lot of things. So definitely a lot of things to be managing, really, as you go along. How do you keep on top of those things as you, like you said there, when you get sleep deprived, things become a bit harder. So do you start to forget things? Talk to us about the situations that you get in when you have sleep deprivation, because it starts to change everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, you stop making real good decisions. I mean, the symptoms, as I try to describe them, is first you start to feel déjà vu experiences. You start to think that you've been in this place before. You start to recognize things beside the road, and everything seems like you've been there before, which might be just totally false.
Yes.
That's a very early sign for me, at least. And then the thoughts that you normally have start to become discussions with yourself inside your head. So you like have real conversations with yourself in your head, which I think normally is how you think, but you don't define it as different voices from yourself. It's just the normal flow of consciousness, and that becomes really strange when you're really tired. And then after that, normally you start to see mirages, which is just fake sights. Yes. So you normally you can see it in the middle of the day, but normally you see it at night when it's dark. And the most common thing is that bushes and trees becomes other things like big animals or monsters or giants or whatever. and these things that you see are really, they are extremely well made up in your brain, so they look real. Right. But they are never scary, because you know that they are fake. You know that they are mirages. So it's not scary. It's just another symptom of that I should actually sleep now.
Right.
But you can push on, and if you push on through the mirages and just continue to stay awake, then you get into the next stage, which for me is hallucinations, which is that you just get more of your senses into the fake world. So you continue to see things that are not there, but you also can start hearing things. The most common thing is that you start to hear conversations from other people somewhere. And but you can also start to smell things. I was really tired. I was doing a mountain race in California many years ago, and I was just not managing my sleep, and I was really, really tired, and I just start smelling coffee, freshly brewed coffee, and I felt so lucky that there were some campers up here in the mountains that were preparing coffee. So I got really, really excited and started running towards this place, and I started hearing the people there in the campgrounds, and I saw their red tent. It was a Marmot tent. I even saw the brand of the tent. And when I get closer, it just turns into two rocks and a log. So it's just, everything is made up in my mind. It was so real. I could smell it, I could hear it, I could see it. Wow. That is a hallucination.
Wow.
And when it comes to me anyway, when I get to this stage, I know I'm so far out there that it might be really dangerous, especially if I do a race in the wild in the high mountains or in the alpine terrain, because then you can start making really, really extremely bad decisions.
Yeah.
So then I just have to drop where I stand to sleep, more or less, if I push this far. But if you push it further, you get into a real psychosis where you no longer can decide to get out of that hallucination. You get into the parallel world where you no longer are in control of what your mind are doing. So that happened to me the first time I did this long 500k race in Tennessee. I pushed on, and on the on the morning of I think it was the fourth day, I just ran down through a road coming down a mountain or a hill, and it was a zigzag road, and I could never get down, or my mind played with me and said I could never get down because I just reached the same left turn every time. I get the left turn, it's the same time. It's the same turn every time. That was what my mind told me, so I got really frustrated about that. But finally, of course, I came down out of the downhill, and there was a church on the left side with a parking lot, and all of a sudden my mind started making rules about that. There was some big rocks on the lawn in front of the church to prevent cars to park on the lawn, and they were perfect to sit on like resting stones, but in my mind it was a rule: you're not allowed to sit on the rocks, you have to sit in a parking square, like for a car. So I had to sit on the pavement in a parking square. And all of a sudden, I was no longer in the race. I had just returned from a business trip from my work. So I was sitting there with some of my colleagues. They were faceless, but they were also there waiting to get picked up to get home.
Oh my
and I
God.
couldn't and this was so real to me. And I couldn't realize how I should be picked up because I'd forgotten how you call for pickup. And I realized I was in the US. So I realized also that my Swedish taxi app wouldn't work there. And I was really confused, and just one after another of my colleagues were picked up somehow. I didn't realize how, and finally I was just by myself, and I didn't realize how to get home. And I was really sad because I remember being in the race, and now I was just getting home, and I wanted to finish the race, and now I wouldn't finish the race, and everything was real. And this session in my mind took me between 4 and 5 hours.
Wow.
Which I'm totally awake, but in this parallel world. It breaks by an outer thing. It's another runner coming down the hill, and I see his white running shoes, and I hear the noise of his pace coming down the pavement, and that just snapped. It's like snapping the fingers, and I'm out of it. And I remember everything, every thought, the thing that I thought was the reality. I get the memory of everything, but I'm so happy to see another human being, and I just debrief myself by running to him, and he's in a relay team. So they are 3 runners that switch all the time just to do this race really fast.
Yeah.
So they have a car that follows them with the other runners in it. So I tell this guy, his name is Charlie Taylor. I tell him the entire story about my psychosis, and he said, "Oh, it's horrible, Johan. You have to stay with us for the rest of the race. It's more or less a marathon left of the race." And I said, "Yes, please let me stay with you. I need you. I need to be close to someone." And then so I get debriefed by him. Then he jumps into the car. Next runner comes out. I tell the same story to him, and then I run with them more or less all the way to the finish line.
Wow.
Just to I'm so desperate of having conversations with another human. I'm so scared of what just happened to me, and this is the most scary sleep deprivation experience I have throughout all my running career. And the next year I went back just to be able to do it right and run through this church parking lot and just think that this will never happen to me again. That would happen the year after, and then I broke the record. So I did it in.
So you did it right.
I did it right in 3 days and 23 hours and 15 minutes.
Wow, mate. Do you ever sort of reflect? Like, people are listening to that and the detail that you've told us, and just going, why is this happening? Why does this guy do it? So do you ever sort of reflect and go, wow, that was actually an experience that is not really supposed to happen, or that was an experience that actually it could have put my life in jeopardy? Do you have those thoughts in reflections?
Yeah, that was the worst experience ever, since I was awake for 5 hours, but without control of my of my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never happened before, and it never happened after. I've been close to it afterwards, but then since I know the feeling now, I know what to do. So I was doing a race in the Pyrenees in 2016, traversing all the Pyrenees, and I was in the high mountains, and I was by myself in the middle of the night, and I'm starting believing that my friends were up on a summit waiting for me, that they had checked us into a luxury hotel, and they were just up there waiting for me. So I started scrambling up a really, really steep mountainsides, which I was not supposed to be doing. So all of a sudden I just find myself on a ledge and realizing what I'm doing. And then I just roll myself in my aluminium foil, this space blanket thing, and just sleep. And it was raining and windy and everything. I didn't care. I just knew that this is so dangerous to push this further. So I need to put the chemicals right in my head before I push on. And when I just slept for, I think it was, let's say 25, 30 minutes, I could get up again and just scramble down to the trail again and push on.
Unbelievable.
But those things happen, and I don't. Now I try to be far from that limit. I try to take the early signs seriously and just put myself to sleep, because it doesn't need. You don't have to sleep for a long time just to put the hormones right in your head.
Yeah.
And perhaps even just enough to. If you're in a tough situation, I mean, if you're in the mountains or so, or if it's a bad weather, then if you sleep for 10 minutes in that very tough place, then you can perhaps get enough brain capacity to move yourself into a village or into some shelter further up, so where you can sleep properly. So don't push too hard. That's what I've learned when it comes to sleep deprivation.
One of the probably the most or a very famous race that you've become, I would say, very closely linked to is the Berkeley Marathons. And there was, I think it came out 2 or 3 years ago, a documentary on Berkeley Marathons on Netflix. Talk to us a little bit about that, why you went to the Berkeley Marathons and that whole experience, because anyone who watches that on Netflix probably just thinks, oh my God, these people are just something else.
Yeah, it's a fantastic race since it's constructed in a way so only 1% will reach the finish line. I mean, it's I think everyone can come up with a race concept where no one finishes. Yes. I mean, it's just make it extremely hard. And but to come up with a concept where only 1% finish, that's genius. Yeah. And that was Gary Cantrell has done with the Berkeley. And every time someone finishes, he just tweaks it a little bit more to make it a little bit harder for the next person to finish. And so what it is a race in a state park in Tennessee, which is called Frozen Head State Park. There used to be a state penitentiary there. There's a prison in the middle of the state park in a very deep and hard to get valley. And the race, the path for the race is drawn underneath a tunnel where it's flowing water underneath the prison. So that's one of the ways you move throughout the race. It's very spectacular and dark and scary at night, especially when it's been a lot of raining, because then the water is deep and really, really it's a tough current. But the state park in itself is beautiful, but you do it in March, April, and the weather can be really tricky. It can be rain, it can be snow, it can be sleet, and it can be really hot that day if it's sunny, especially down in the canyons and up in the mountains or up on the summits. You can have really cold weather, and it can be snowing, especially at night.
Wow!
So everything like that is hard, and then it's a lot. Everything is covered with trees, so it's pretty dense vegetation, and everything, of course, has no leaf. It's dropped for the winter, so it's hard to see the contours of the mountains or the structure of the nature, because everything is covered in these these trees, bare branches without any leaves. So it's more just gray, blurry situations to put yourself in, and therefore it's really hard to find your way, because it's more or less everything of it is not on trail. It's just off trail. It's not orienteering, but you have to follow a specific route, and there's not a trail that you follow. It's just a specific route that you have to follow, but it's most of it is off trail. So you have to find your way throughout the vegetation, and you have to follow like a path that's been drawn on a map, and you need to find your way with a compass and a map. No electronic navigation equipment is allowed, so no GPS or stuff like that. So you have to be really dependent on your skills when it comes to a compass and a map, and of course that will be easy at day.
Yes.
And when you're fresh in your head, but normally this for the few that has finished, they do that close to 60 hours, which is also the cutoff of the race. Right. So after that amount of time, you will have the aspect of sleep deprivation to take into consideration as well. So you have to manage everything, and there's a loop race. You do 5 loops in this state park, and at every end of the loop, you're allowed to take some aid from you do this. You have this like a base camp in a camping ground where you can you get access to some to your crew and extra clothes and food and stuff. But then you go out on the next loop. You're not allowed to take any help from anyone, and you will be out for approximately between 10 and 12 hours on the next loop. Wow. So you spend a lot of time by yourself in really dense forests.
Unbelievable. The whole concept around this race of registration, how you register for the race, and actually how the race starts with the race organizer lighting a cigarette. It's quite a quirky race, shall we say? Yeah. It's quite different. What sort of made you want to enter it?
I read about it somewhere, and it's of course very intriguing when you read about the race where very few people finish it.
Yeah.
You want to see how hard can it be? I mean, it can't be that hard. That was my thought. Right. I mean, I will finish it. I've tried 3 times. I've not even been close.
Really?
Now it's extremely hard, and it's not just one thing, it's everything combined. It's the terrain, it's the cutoff times, you have to depend on yourself for so many hours, and and of course you have to rely on your own ability and your own skill to navigate. It's very easy if you're not feel confident in that aspect that you follow others.
Yeah.
And you start just pushing. You try to help each other, but what you do is just no one takes charge, or no one takes the control of the situation. You start searching for control places that you need to find.
Yeah.
You can soon the time just slips away, and you're out of time. And
wow.
Yeah, it's so easy. It's so easy to make mistakes.
Yeah.
That it's extremely hard to just. I mean, a lot of people won't finish the first loop. Very few finish the second, and normally there's a few that finish the third one. Last year, no one finished even the third loop. Yeah, one did actually, but.
Wow.
But
and you've been to the race. You've been to the race 3 times and still not finished it.
No, I only finished 3 loops, but hopefully I can do. What's lacking for me right now is that I live in a place where I don't have access to proper hills to do some really long hill training, both going up but mainly running downhill.
Yeah.
So I have to find motivation to take myself into the artificial ski slope just few Ks from where I live and just do hill repeats in that one, but it's so boring.
Yeah, that's not super interesting. On the back of the Berkeley Marathons, the organizer of it, who goes by the name of Laz, his nickname, Gary Cantrell, has now, he's been doing these for quite a while, but it seems that the brand or the race, the big backyard ultra, has really exploded recently. I mean, we were talking the other day and you said, yeah, now we have 5 in Sweden. We're going to have 1 here in Dubai. You were in one of these in the States in October of last year. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually hold the record for the number of hours completed in this race. Talk us through this concept, because this is, along with, like you were saying earlier, the 24-hour race, this is, again, a very intriguing concept.
Yeah, this is also something that Laz came up with. I think he came up with it when he went to school, like high school or something, that he thought that if I just had the opportunity to equal out the differences in speed of different runners, I might be a really good runner, because he felt that he was a slow runner, but he could do it for a really long time and be consistent. But if you're a slow runner and you compete over short races, or doesn't matter of the length of the race, with good runners or fast runners, they will always beat you. Yeah. So he came up with the concept that every hour you start a new loop, and the loop is 4.166 miles, which completes 100 miles in 24 hours, or 6.7 kilometers per hour. And when you completed the loop, you are free to spend any spare minutes to whatever you do in this like looping area, intersection area. Yeah. And so you do your 6.7K, and then you have the opportunity to sit down, have a drink, have a snack. I don't know, whatever you need to do, just change shoes or socks or whatever. Mm-hmm. Just rest. And then on the hour, Laz will blow a whistle when it's 3 minutes before the starts. Then he blows 3 times. In 2 minutes, he blows 2 times. 1 minute, he blows 1 time. And then on the start, he will ring a cowbell, and then you have to be in the starting corral and start moving. Otherwise, you're out. Right. So it's like a last man standing event. Everyone will be at the lead. Yes. Together. Right. On every hour. So even if you're a fast runner or a slow runner, you will be together again after an hour. And then it's just more or less to take one loop at a time and be in the starting corral for the next cowbell and start running again. And then you continue until you're just by yourself. Then you have to finish one loop by yourself, and then you have won.
Wow. So for you, that was in last year, that was on the 68th loop where your competitor, Courtney Dauwalter, who in the last couple of years has also taken the ultra world by storm in her abilities. Mm-hmm. So she dropped out at 67 laps. How did that feel? You're like, wow, if I just finish this one lap, I'm going to win this race.
Well, the thing there is that I came to the race really tired and frustrated because I had really bad traveling experience. I had some flights that were turning around, taking me back to Stockholm after 6 hours. Oh dear. Yeah, it was. So, and then I had to go another route over to the US, and I came more or less to the race sleep deprived. I hadn't slept for many hours for like 2 days when I arrived to the start, and that's so bad when you're entering a race where more or less sleep deprivation is what you're going to compete in. Yes. Because the race is so slow, or the pace needs to be so slow. So I was feeling, I don't know, frustrated and bitter and not happy at all. So just walking up to the start, I tried to refocus and try to be happy again, because I had to think about things that are good. I mean, I have the opportunity to travel across the world just to meet friends and do a really fun concept race. And I mean, this is my hobby. This is not my job. This is something I do because I love it. So I started to change my mindset a little bit. And then when I started to talk to people, old friends, old running friends, There's approximately 70 people starting this race. It's a small event, and it's the original one. And it's you run during the day on Lass and Sandra's farm in Bellbuckle, Tennessee. The loop is on their like farmland, or it's a wood farm. What's it called?
Yeah. Like a forest.
Exactly, like a forest property. And then after 12 hours and the sun sets, then you do the loop on a paved road just to prevent injuries and falls and stuff like that.
Right.
And then when it's daylight again, you move back into the woods. So after a couple of days, I started to see it was really fun to just be like in the race, because I dropped every ambition to race and to do well, because I knew that my preparations was so not satisfying. And but after a couple of days, I started to see or notice that everyone else was starting to get tired also, which was really inspiring for me, because I felt like, okay, now you have to feel how it is to do this race when you're really tired. I've been tired for 2 days now. So that was a little bit fun, and I noticed that was a stupid thought, but still it was like humorous. So I stuck to that, and I said, well, I try to do my best now. At least everyone is suffering now. I've been suffering for so long. Now we'll see what will happen when everyone starts to suffer. And and there was, I think to make a really good result in a concept like this, you need at least 3, 4, perhaps 5 really good runners or racers that want to do well.
Yes.
Because as soon as you drop down to 2, which was happening when Gavin Woody quit after 55, I think, 65 loops, which is also incredible.
Yeah.
Then you just have 2 runners left, Courtney and me. And as soon as someone of us would start believing that you can't win, or I can't win, then the race is over, because you won't push yourself just to see how many more loops you can do to lose.
Yeah.
You will only continue as long as you think that you can win.
Right.
So what happened to Courtney, I think, is that when she realized that, or in her mind, she thought that Johan will win this no matter what. Then she quits, because she just loses every motivation to continue. And your brain is so mushy, and you're not so bright anymore, so you just follow your feelings.
How did she quit? Did she just not turn up for the 68th lap, or how did it actually happen?
Yeah, we had for the last night we had 2 tents, like these garden tents, like 3 times 3 meters, where we had the walls up, so no one saw what we did in there. In there we could both be just small and whiny, and no one would see that we were suffering. And as soon as you go out and show yourself to everyone else, then you try to look as fresh and strong as you can, just to look unbeatable. But so we were in these tents, and throughout the race, she had been in the starting corral like 2 minutes before the start. And so normally I come out like when it's 30 seconds to go before the start. So she was always standing there like a statement that nothing can break me down. I'm the strongest of all of you.
Wow.
And that was a really good concept. But on the 68, when we were supposed to start the 68 loop, then she wasn't there when I came out, and I was really worried. And Lass was so tired. I mean, he doesn't sleep either. So he came over and started talking to me about I don't know what, and I was just worried. Where is Courtney? And then when it was like 10 seconds to the bell, she came out of her tent, and I saw that something had happened, and she just walked straight up to me, looked me in the eye, shook my hand, and said, "You got this. Go and do your last lap and win this."
Wow.
And then the bell rang, so I couldn't talk to her. I couldn't do anything. I just ran.
Yeah.
And it felt so empty. It felt so stupid and so unmotivational, because it was a game that we had played for so many days. And it was depending. The game depends on that we are at least two that place. I mean, now it was just me left. Everything felt meaningless, pointless, and stupid. So my first reaction was just to grab her and say, no, don't quit. Come, we have more loops to do. But of course, I did that. I finished that loop, and on the way, it was absolutely the hardest loop of all.
Really?
Because the motivation was gone. And I tried to really dig deep to find the joy of winning for real. So I knew that I cannot come back and finish this race and don't seem happy. That would be too strange. So I had to just muster up some happy feelings and finish it and be joyful about being the last man standing.
Incredible effort. Some questions about the race that people are probably thinking about. You said the pace is quite slow. What sort of pace were you running, or what was your target pace for the loop?
For the first day, when I was nothing mattered because I was not in the race to compete. I tried every type of, I did some fast loops with some fast friends. I did some really slow loops, like 58 minutes, just 1 or 2 minutes to spare with some other friends that normally do that. But then I settled into something around 48, 49 minutes that I did more or less the entire time. I did a few loops fast, which is not fast, but perhaps 40, 43 minutes, just to have some extra time if you need to change socks or do something like that.
How do you manage that time, mate? Because obviously that's something mentally for you as well, because you have 60 minutes. If you do 42 minutes, you've got 18 minutes to take care of things, maybe have a nap, maybe eat. But if you do 48 minutes, you've only got 12 minutes to get all that done. So what was your strategy, and how do you deal with that mentally as well?
For the first couple of days, I had no crew. I was just managing myself. And then I have like a cooler with some drinks and some yogurt, and I have a plastic box with some extra spare clothes, that are kept dry in the plastic box, and I also have some other food in there. So I try to eat, and just as soon as I get into the starting area or finishing area, I sit down in my camping chair. I grab something to drink. I drink it really fast. I eat something if I feel like eating something, and then I wrap myself in a blanket and try to close my eyes.
Right.
So I put my legs up on the plastic box, and I try to be as flat as possible just to relax the muscles.
Yeah.
So I did that for a couple of days, and then since there's a lot of since everyone drops out, there's a possibility to get a lot of crews. A lot of people would like to help you.
Right.
So on the second night, I'm allowed to move into Guillaume Calmette, my friend's support tent. He's still in the race tent, so he has his brother and his mother, and also a friend that's called Andy that was in the race but quit after a little more than a day. Right. So we had 3 crew persons on 2 runners, which was very, very good. And all of a sudden I can start relax and don't have to take care of myself. I just ask for something, and like magic, I have it in my hand, which is of course much more relaxing, and you can use your minutes much more efficient. And the final day and night, I had the tent to myself, and I just put all my trust in my crew. They took care of absolutely everything. Everything was prepared for me, and I got real food, which I love. And as soon as I had my drink and my food, they said, "What do you want to sleep?" And I said, "Of course, yes." Yeah. They wrapped me in warm blankets. They had a heater on me, a gas heater on me in the tent, and then they just walked out of the tent and left and let me try to sleep there for myself for a few minutes. And then when 2 minutes to the start, they came in and gently woke me up and helped me to get on my feet and just into the starting corral. So I was more or less, they just totally took responsibility for everything in between loops, and I just took the responsibility of moving. That was
I mean, that's obviously a massive help, because that time that you now have between finishing and restarting you can use it in a lot more, shall we say, practical way or valuable way in that you get your sleep. So I guess
absolutely,
the support. What about those sleeps? Because if you're coming in at 48 minutes, you've got 12 minutes. The whistle blows 3 minutes to the start, so you've got 9 minutes. To eat takes about, I don't know, 3 to 4 minutes. So you've literally got 5 minutes to sleep. And I mean, we've spoken a lot about sleep deprivation, but this is somehow kind of different because you're limited to perhaps 5 to a maximum of 10 minutes per hour over the course of almost 3 days. So how is that different from the experiences that you've had, and how do you manage it in a race like this?
I think I was a bit lucky. Actually, by my state of starting the race, I was really sleepy. So I could, early on, I wasn't stressed out about the situation, about the race or anything. I just felt like everything as it is, and we have to take it as it is. And I was relaxed from the beginning, so I could start getting naps during the first day already.
Wow.
So, I mean, if you start, I think it might be a problem if you don't sleep for, like, say, 24, 30 hours, and then you start to chase the naps. Then you might have so much stress hormone in your body that it's hard to get to fall asleep in 5 minutes.
For sure.
But if you made it, if you made it a routine and had it constantly throughout the race, which I more or less had, then it was, I didn't suffer from it at all. Actually, my worst sleep deprivation night was the second night. The third night was really exciting because I was thinking that I might win this race. I had something to think about. The second night was just killing time, and that's harder. I was running a lot alongside Maggie Guthrie, and we were both really tired. So when we fell asleep running, we just bumped into each other so we could wake each other up. That was also a comfort to have someone next to you.
Yeah, to have that team.
It was never this time for me. I had some of the mirages that we talked earlier about, where you see things, but it was not real far out sleep deprivation mode for me, at least. Those few naps made it actually bearable.
You said something there that you were able to sleep from the start, but when you look at food and taking in the food during those small breaks, was that affecting you? Because obviously if you have, if you're feeling a little bit tired, yes, you want to sleep, but then you're having some food which could be high in sugar, keeping you awake, could have caffeine in it, keeping you awake. How do you manage that so that in those 5 minutes you can actually get some sleep?
Yeah, I think after a few hours, when you've been moving for a half a day or a day or so, then, I mean, the body is just craving. You're just running low on energy. You cannot put in as much calories that you burn. So everything is needed. So and I think that the caffeine or any substances like that will not make so much effect on you when you're getting really sleepy after a few days. Then it's the substances are too weak to make any impact. That's just my thought about it. I don't know. I drink coffee because I like the taste of it, and I'm used to it. I mean, it's a warm drink, and at night it was freezing at night, so it was nice to have a warm cup of coffee,
for sure,
especially with a lot of cream in it, so I get the calories as well. But I didn't suffer. I didn't get refreshed, or I couldn't sleep of it. So
it works out well, mate. Last question on the big backyard. You're the reigning champion. You have the record. Will you defend that record in this year in 2019? Is that in the plans?
No, unfortunately not. I would love to be on the starting line just to give everyone, especially Courtney, the opportunity to beat me, because she deserves that. I mean, I was so amazed to have the opportunity to run next to her. She's a true champion and such an inspirational runner. So, I mean, in any race where there would have been a fixed finishing line, she would have beat me.
Right.
I'm certain of that. So this is just a concept where my special mind can change that. But this year, actually, it's a World Championship just a week after in 24-hour race in Albi in France, and I would like to do that because I don't think I have so many championships left in me. So I this year it will be a world championship 24-hour race for me instead.
Incredible.
But and I think that the hype around big backyards is so high now, so there will be so many high profile races, and in this type of event you can actually get someone that you never heard of before that will make excellent results, because it's such a special event and not many people have tried it before. So I think we will see actually a new type of runners that will do really, really well. And if you get, but you need at least 3, but I would say it would be good to have 5 runners that have the ability to run for 60-70 hours, battling it out, because as soon as you're down to 2, someone will quit really fast.
Like you demonstrated there.
So,
it's an interesting time, like you said there. There's going to be a new stream of runner coming in. Just before we wrap up, mate, what's your thoughts on? There seems to be quite a fast growth in ultra at the moment. There's more races coming out. There's shorter races from 50 kilometers that makes it quite not achievable for people, but people, once they've done a marathon, they're like, oh yeah, maybe I could push to that. So I'm just interested to get your thoughts on the growth of ultra running sort of globally at the moment.
A broad spectrum question, but I mean the mountain type running and mountain type ultra running has grown really, really much the last 5 years, and I think a lot of that comes from that we have really good international stars or role models that do that. Like Kilian is a fantastic runner, but also adventurer and an inspirational human being. Together with his girlfriend Emily Forsberg. I mean, those people. A lot of people follow them on social media and follow them on what they do, and that inspires, of course, a lot of runners to try to do what they are doing. So it draws a lot of people to big races like UTMB, that are so filled many, many months beforehand, and they are more and more big profile races that needs to have lotteries or some sort of selection of which one is going to be able to run it. But then I think it's also been a trend for many, many years, at least here in the Nordic countries, to run marathons. The city marathons has grown every year, more and more participants up until a couple of years ago when it started to declining. And I think that people start to realize that there are other ways to do endurance sports. You can do A to B ultra in the woods, where you don't have the pressure, you don't have to do it with the taste of blood in your mouth. You can do it as a social event, and just perhaps go for 50k instead of 42.2k. And I think the trend is that more and more people get to realize that the human limit of running is not a marathon; it's something else. And more and more people get curious about seeing where their limits are. At least that's what I hope. That because if you take your chance and just try something, you can do it really controlled. If you do a timed race, if you do a 6 hours race that can be on a loop in a park, you can actually experience how it is to be on your feet for 6 hours moving. I mean, every human being should try to do that, because that's a very revitalizing feeling to realize that you have a body that is capable of doing that, and everyone has that.
No, it's you're right, mate. It's very interesting, because it's such a. I think what we're really saying here is that it's so natural to do this. But on the extreme end, like when we're talking earlier about your state and in the churchyard and with your colleagues and stuff, a lot of people are going, this is too extreme. But on the front end of the spectrum, we should be able to be on our feet for 6 hours. We should be able to go for 50k. Now whether people want to push that to the limits that you're pushing it to and really explore what's going on, obviously I actually think it becomes a little bit more addictive as time goes on. It's almost like, okay, I can run 5K now, I'll run 10. And then I can run 10, I'll run 21. And now you're at the stage where you're running 500-kilometer races. So I think it just becomes, an addiction.
Of course, it's a mental barrier. And what's the norm of the society? I mean, if the norm is that a marathon is what is the human limitation of what running is, then of course it will be like that. But it's not. You just have to push through and see that, it's nothing magical happening after 42.2K.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just going on. And I totally agree with you. It's a little bit, it's not, you have to look through what I'm telling about pushing the limits up to the extreme, because no elite sport is healthy.
Yes.
It can be dangerous, any type of extreme sport or elite sport or stuff like that. But ultra running is also for just everyone that wants to do it in their own pace and their own time. And I mean, a lot of ultra running that's growing in Sweden is that you do social runs. I did something that's been on for like 10 years here in Stockholm. It's called the last long run of the year. Where we run the northern suburbs of Stockholm. It's like 60K. You do it socially with like 90 people starting early in the morning.
Nice.
Couple of days before New Year's, and we run and we stop and we have some coffee out of a car that someone drove out, and we stop midway and just have lunch in a fast food restaurant, and then we run for a day chatting. I mean, that's also a way of just be on your feet for a day and feel. It's a very, very good thing, I think, to just be able to move yourself by your body for a day, just to see how that is, and realize that you're able to do that, because we're made to do that. We are genetically constructed to do that.
To move forward. It's a very good point. Mate, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I just have one last question. And you've shared some absolutely incredible things, mate. But if you could say there's one piece of advice that you tell, I don't know, to your children, or that you've learned through your life of ultra running, or even if your life, as we go back to the start, as a CEO, what's your one piece of advice that you would just give to people as your go-to? Take this piece of advice. This is going to help you to live the very best life.
Oh, that's a serious question, but
it's
I think
very serious.
I mean, professionally, I think be kind and listen to people. I mean, that's the most important. That I try to live by that every day. But if it comes to running, the most important rule that I try to tell everyone, especially if they're going to start running, is that don't run more today that you want to run tomorrow. Because if you run today, so you get tired, you get the taste of blood in your mouth, and it's start to get connected with some sort of boundary or anxiety to get out to run, you won't make it a habit. The trick is to run just as little as you want to run tomorrow again. That's the secret of consistency. If you make it consistent, you will make it a lifelong passion, and then you will have a happier life. I'm certain about that.
Amazing, mate. What an incredible way to finish things up. I really, really appreciate your time, and honestly, Jan, your mindset towards it. I think everyone that's listened to this show is out the door already. They've probably got their trainers on and they're like, yeah, this guy's right. You don't have, I think that last bit, like run today, like, you're going to run tomorrow as well, is just, it's very cool, mate. And I think you're an inspiration. We spoke before we started about your son, and I'm going to put that clip at the end because I think that's something that's very inspirational as well. So, mate, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being again with us on the show. And we're excited for your 24-hour record in France later in the year.
Thanks, Marcus. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Not
talking about running. That's fun.
It's a lot of fun. I wish you a great day, and we'll stay in touch as always.
Yeah, we will. Thanks, man.
Thanks a lot, buddy. Cheers.
And here is a little bonus part from this podcast. This is the clip of a conversation that Johan and I had before we actually officially started recording about how his 13-year-old son has run his first ultra. Very inspiring and very interesting indeed. Enjoy this clip. Thanks for listening.
Wow. Do they run?
No. The older one, he ran a race with me this summer in Oregon. We were on a road trip, vacation road trip in the western states of US, and I asked him if he wanted to run with me, and he said yes. And I said, okay, I'll try to look up a good race for us. And I found a mountainous trail race in Oregon, Ochoco Trails it was called, and it was 50K.
Wow.
And I told him, do you think you want to run 50K with me? He said, Dad, can I do that? Is it possible for you? And I said, yeah, sure. He's still in that age where he believes what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So he was like, so can I do it? And I said, yeah, you can. We just let it take all day.
Wow.
And he said, okay. And it was nothing more about that. And then when he plays soccer, so he has some basic stamina for running, but he doesn't train actual running.
Wow.
And we were on the road in the US, traveling around, just visiting beaches and having a good time. We did some hiking and some stuff like that, outdoor living, camping, and couple of weeks before the race, I said, you better start training now, otherwise it will be really painful for you. I said, okay. So he started running. He went out running with me a day. We ran for about 10K, and then he was really, it really took him hard that he realized, 10K is hard. I'm going to do 50K in a few weeks. So he started running a little bit every day for a little less than 2 weeks. He ran for 3 or 4K every day up to the race. And then we had 2 very important rules that he had to promise me to follow. The first rule was that I would set the pace for the first half of the race. And then the second rule was that he had to eat and drink everything I told him to.
Okay.
But he was okay with those 2 rules. And then I just was 2 meters behind him for the entire race. And after, I had to slow him down a little bit in the beginning, but he was really cool with that. And as I mentioned, he's still in the age where he believes in his dad. So it was, and after I think it was 30K in, something like that, he realized that he had his muscles were totally wasted, and his will to do it was gone, and it was so long to go. I mean, the longest he had run in his life before was 20K, and now it was 50K. So after 30K, I saw how he reached that point where I've been so many times, where you don't want to do it anymore, and where everything is you cannot. You have to reach really deep just to push on. Yeah. And he's only 13, and he has the opportunity to reach this place. And I'm so happy for him. And I'm so happy for me that I'm so egocentric at that moment, but because I'm so happy as a father that I'm able to see my son for the first time reach that limit of what you think you can do and push through it. Right. Because that was what he did. He was just having he started crying silently. He didn't want to show himself, and at least me, that he was devastated about his situation.
Wow.
And he just pushed on, and he didn't whine a bit. He didn't say anything. I think on the last 20K, he turned around 2 times just to ask me, do you know how far we have to go? And I said, yeah, you know, my GPS watch says this, but we can't depend on that. And okay, and just pushed on. So when he finally reached the finish line, and he saw that not only his father but other adults just was amazed by what he had accomplished, he was a little bit, proud, and he was like that. But also it was nothing. It was nothing because it's a short ultra race.
Yeah.
Because everything you heard about it is my races, and they are so long. So it's 50K. When his grandparents say you're crazy, they say to me, "You're crazy. You're a bad dad at driving along on these things." And I say, "No, I'm not. I'm the perfect dad." Yeah. And they tell his name is Elliot. They tell Elliot that you did amazing. You were fantastic. And he says, "Nah, yeah, but it was just a short ultra race, my dad runs much longer.
So he knows exactly what, mate. That's actually a really good story. I'll cut that bit and I'll put it in the show, because that's actually a really good part. I mean, he's amazing, mate. At 13 years old to do something like that, it's
and he's still, he's 13, but he's still a child. His body hasn't grown yet, so he's not like a teenager. He's just like a little boy.
I think there's certain parts of the world where it's almost illegal to take your children and do something like that with them, mate.
Yeah, I tried first at a few races in the US, and they stopped me. I didn't realize that first, but then I realized that of course they will stop me. He will be too young. Yeah. But this race director, I think she knew about me. Okay. So I said, I'm gonna be like 2 meters behind him all day. And she said, okay, as long as you just sign this waiver or something and just stick with him, it's fine.
Wow, good. Yeah. No, that's incredible. That's it.